What's up, guys? Welcome back to OverTakes. This is Misfit, and today we are recapping Week 9 in the Overwatch League. Going to talk about some matches, some of the scenarios for the Midseason Madness tournament, and we're going to break down one match today, and then we're going to talk about where teams are before we get to the end, where teams are as far as the tournament, who's in, what's going to happen, before we get into our preview for the final week of the Midseason Madness qualifiers, which will be later on in the week. Before we get into all that, though, I'd like to thank all you guys for joining me. If you've been here for 1 day or 5 years, thank you very much. If you're new, just checking me out, I do Overwatch League content 2 to 3 times a week, depending on what's going on, and let's get into it. Okay, let's talk about Week 9. We're going to have a little overview of the East and the West, and then we'll dive into some team takes, and then we'll go into the match we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk a little Houston-Atlanta, because that match was the most fun. I was going to do a couple, but I want to talk more about standings and whatnot at the end of the episode. So there were a couple matches we could have talked about. There was actually decent, engaging matches this week compared to a lot of the 3 Overwatch and 3-1 matches and all that kind of stuff we've been getting, especially in the East, or in the West, I should say. East was the exact opposite. We had less games that were compelling this week. One game that went to 3-2. All right, let's go down the results for the week, and then we'll talk a little bit about the East and where things are at there, and then we'll hit the West and keep moving. All right, so here we go. Philly defeats the Hangzhou Spark 3-2. The Chengdu Hunters beat the Guangzhou Charge 3-1. London beats the Paris Eternal 3-0. The Outlaws outlast the Atlanta Reign 3-2. The Gladiators beat the Toronto Defiant 3-1. Now on to Saturday, we have the Seoul Dynasty winning 3-0 over Guangzhou. The Chengdu Hunters beating the Valiant 3-0. And the Shanghai Dragons beating Philly 3-0. Now to the West, San Francisco beats the Titans 3-0. The Gladiators beat the Justice 3-1. Toronto, in a close one, defeats Paris 3-2. On the Sunday, Seoul Dynasty beats the Hangzhou Spark 3-0. The Shanghai Dragons take out the LA Valiant 3-0. To the West, London beats the Washington Justice 3-2. The Dallas Fuel beat the New York Excelsior 3-2, and the Florida Mayhem in a reverse sweep beat the Boston Uprising 3-2. Okay, so there's the schedule, there's the results for the week. Let's talk about the East a little bit. The East is, of course, weird as usual. We thought we had a beat on it, and I put my faith into the Hangzhou Spark. The Spark are not going to falter. This is a good team. Yeah. So much for that. They did not look good this weekend. I don't know if it was I don't know what they were doing. It didn't seem like the normal Hangzhou experience that we've had. I mean, I did not expect them to beat Seoul. I expected them to give them a game, and I expected them to beat Philly 3-1. And just by the results that we've had in the last couple of weeks, what we've seen, or just last week at least, with Hangzhou and Philly, I thought Philly was a little lost. I didn't think they would be able to handle the Spark the way the Spark were playing, with Alfie and Shy and Bernard playing well, and their back line playing well. Everything seemed to be clicking for the Spark, but the Fusion do what they normally do, and that's confuse you. Just when you think they're dead, they beat the Spark 3-2. And then you'll put your faith in them, and then they'll lose to the Dragons 3-0. A team who they didn't give a map up to, I believe, this whole season yet. Well, they didn't take one this week, so, whatever that is with them. Chengdu, they did what we thought. This is a meta built for some of the guys on their team, so it works out really well for them. They won 3-1, 3-0. They're looking pretty good. They're still behind the Fusion because, unfortunately, they looked terrible last stage. They're behind the Fusion by a game, and they got the Dragons, and they have Hangzhou. So they have 2 difficult matches to even contest, stay in the conversation in the East to be in they'd have to knock out Philly. The last spot is the only spot that's open. So they would have to beat out Philly. They would have to beat Hangzhou and Shanghai, and I believe Philly would have to lose at least one game in order for them to jump up in there. But it's looking pretty solidified as far as who's in. It's just the manner in which they're getting there. The Dragons look better this week. The Spark look worse, and Philly does what Philly does on a weekly basis. And meanwhile, Seoul is just chugging along, racking up W's, showing everybody how good they are. They disposed of the Spark pretty damn easily. Yeah, Guangzhou expected that. But the Dynasty are just playing at an unbelievable level right now. They're neck and neck with the Gladiators, in my opinion, as the two best teams in the whole Overwatch League this year. I think we're going to be seeing this matchup, Gladiators Dynasty, we're going to be seeing it quite a bit in these tournaments. At least it feels that way right now. Who knows what happens in the next patch if they're going to add, I'm assuming they're going to add Junker Queen and all that stuff in there. Who knows? It's confusing and weird just to be involved in Overwatch. Some people are in the beta playing Junker Queen. Most of the people aren't. And the league is playing on the first beta patch. And it's just a fucking confusing mess. But whatever it is. They do this all the time. I don't know why I'm surprised. But anyway, enough of that rant. We'll get back to that at a later date. But Seoul is just the class of the East, period. Good luck trying to beat them. They have their moments where they fail, though. So, I mean, Dragons can beat them. Philly can beat them. Hangzhou can beat them at any given moment. But right now, Marvel, Smurf is looking fantastic. You got Prophet and Fitz playing stuff. Stalker coming in, playing phenomenally. It's just, they're on a different level right now. You can include the sport line of Van Damme and Creative in there. They're playing unbelievably well as well. So Dynasty look like they're in control of the East for the time being, for the moment, for at least for this tournament. The rest of the teams that are involved in the conversation for Midseason Madness, Hangzhou, Philly, you could throw Chengdu in there, and Shanghai as well. I mean, obviously Shanghai's up there with Hangzhou. Philly and Chengdu are yet to be determined. They're all looking good. As good as the Valiant looked last week, they looked kind of mediocre, kind of came back down to earth. But, you know, they had two tough games. They played Chengdu, who's got a meta built for them, and Shanghai, who is riding the ship, getting more acquainted with 5v5, apparently. But they looked a lot better, Shanghai. The Valiant looked a little bit worse. But, you know, it's expected. They're not the greatest team, but I think they're going to be better. They're just not quite there yet. And Marvel is a fantastic addition. And I think they'll be giving teams, the more they get cohesion going on as a team, I think they're going to play a little bit better. Will they? They might make a tournament. Overall, though, you got Summer Showdown and then the Countdown Cup, which is the play-ins. You don't have much leeway here as far as making it to where you want to be at the end of the year. So they're improved. Bad week, but expected in a way, at least from me. I thought they would give Chengdu a little bit better match than they did. But that's my take on the East. The West was crazy this week. There were some matches that went 5 games that shouldn't have. There are games that teams should have won that blew. You know, it was a big mess. You know, a normal week in the Overwatch League in the West. Not really, but it had more of the East vibe to it. You're going, what? What is going on here? Yeah, that was my take on the West to start. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. London's continuing to look fantastic. Back to the Western stuff. They only have 3 losses on the year. They're on a 5-game winning streak. They're beating some teams that, you know, all right, you could go out there and say are not great. They beat Paris. They've beaten teams like the Mayhem. All right, yeah, I'll let you bite on that and take that. You know, they beat the Justice, who are whatever the fuck the Justice are. They're still playing really, really well. Houston and Atlanta are kind of the same team. Atlanta has a way worse record right now, which is surprising to me. They look good from 1 minute to the next. You don't know what's going to happen with Atlanta. Their strats against Houston were kind of interesting. I think in that last map, they had the right call in bringing Nero in to play a variety of different heroes. They wanted to run a couple different strats on King of the Hill. I can understand that, all right. But you take out Kai on Sojourn, who's so OP. Sometimes I'm not the biggest fan of that. You know, the teams in the top of the West remain doing what they do as far as the Gladiators and the Shock. Dallas is in that right now. I would put Dallas in that Houston-Atlanta range of weird, don't know what to think of them right now. They struggled with New York, but New York actually looked good, so I don't know if it was so much I think they kind of undervalued what New York could do because New York has been playing such shit this year. They went in there a little lax. And New York kind of crumbled towards the end. But New York played better. I still think it's a issue with coaching on that team. I saw Kuki enough last year to realize that some of the things that he does and some of the strategies are not the best. You had a team with... Now, granted, it's not that great, but it's on the same level, you could say, as the Excelsior right now. Maybe even less so on the talent scale. You have Yaki and BQB. You're relying too much on Yaki. You have Gangnam Jin and... Or I mean, you don't have BQB. You have Flora. Gangnam Jin and Myeongbong, who look decent enough at times, but you have Gangnam Jin playing, most of the time playing main support on a hero he has no idea how to play coming into the season. He's looked a little bit better, but he's still not great. Your tank is Kellen, rookie, struggled, looked better in this match for sure. I like the look that he gave. He still had his moments where he was feeding, but there's too much to try and unpack with this team. You look at and there's been a big discussion, obviously. Now that I'm going to say the phrase, they have the talent. Uber, who honestly, I tend to agree with. All these teams have talent, and in my opinion, he said it by not saying it. It's where you're directing this talent. In other words, teams like New York and Justice, who people like me, the desk, all the guys that do any kind of Overwatch League coverage say they have the talent. The problem is where are you putting the focus on this talent? The Justice are a prime example. This team is lost, not even in the sauce. They don't even know where the fucking sauce is. They have players that, when coached and directed and set up to succeed, will succeed. When they run Kalios in there with that Sigma comp, sometimes on the Doomfist, his Doomfist is kind of mediocre at best, but you can have Happy on heroes he's good at, and Decay can run around on Tracer. And Krillin looks decent at times, and Vigilante looked pretty good. So if you're running double flex and with Kalios, but then they go back to Mag. I'm not saying Mag's a bad player, but every time he's in there, they are uncoordinated and are just a fucking hot mess. There were times when Kalios is in there, they're a hot mess too. I know I've jumped from New York to them, but it's a similarity of what I think is happening here. You look at the teams, London, Christopher has this team who has less talent, arguably, if you want to get into the talent discussion. On paper, you're looking, if you went on paper, took the coaching, the strategies, and all this stuff and stripped it down. On paper, Justice, London. Who are you taking? You're taking Washington. Yeah, I know, London fans, you're going to say you're going to take the Spitfire. Everything stripped down, you're taking Washington, right? Yeah, coaching matters in this league. And as much as guys want to say that it doesn't, it does. Because Washington has no direction. Neither does New York. Their strategies are just not right. Both teams. And they're both failing where they shouldn't be. They should be way better than they are. I haven't talked much about San Francisco and the Gladiators. They had an easy week, both teams. The Gladiators took care of Toronto and Washington, which is expected, both 3-1. And San Francisco buried the Titans. And they tried out a couple things that'll maybe not different, but they were playing the matches and figuring some more stuff out going into the tournament. It's because they have coaches that know what they're doing. Conversely, where you have the Justice and the New York Excelsior, they're not getting coached properly. Do I think New York should have beat Dallas? No. And I'm saying this about a team that lost to Dallas 3-2. Dallas is struggling. Okay? They're still trying to get their footing in this meta. They've gotten better in the last 2 weeks. New York, actually, this is the first game plan thing. I'm not going to rail on Kuki here for this. They look good to an extent. Still got beat, but if you guys see where I'm going here. The Mayhem Boston match to end the week, I thought that was a fantastic match, but you could see a little bit of coaching diff there. All right, they go down 0-2. Gunba concocts some things, and they get some things going, and Florida plays up to where they were. I also think they underestimated Boston. And one of the things with Florida, I keep saying it, they're way too damn aggressive, and they're getting called out for it now, more. Not just by the Gladiators and the Shocks and the Atlanta Reigns. They're getting caught out by Boston, Toronto. They're getting, when you're over aggressive and you have heroes like Zenyatta and Sojourn that can rip your head off in one shot, or a volley or whatever. You go in there like a madman, you're going to get fucking killed. It's just the way it is. They still managed to get the win, and they had to win that match to stay anywhere close to the tournament range. Luckily for them, the Justice lost 2 matches, so the West was kind of chaotic this week. The matches were close. A couple of them were decent, and some of them were just head scratchers, even though they were close. Anytime Toronto's involved in a 3-2, I don't know what the fuck happens. They're another team that I don't know if it's the coaching or just the players or what. It's just a weird scenario there right now because they don't have a coach, and they're kind of flying on the seat of their pants. So I guess I got to give them a little bit of a pass, but they're still losing, and they have guys that shouldn't playing as badly per most people. I didn't think it was that hot of a roster going in, but that's me compared to everybody else. Okay, so that is my kind of quick rundown, thoughts, rants on week 9. One last note on that. Apparently everybody's in with the Moira now. We've seen a lot of Moira, Lucio. I kind of get it to an extent, but it's not fun to watch. I like watching Zenyatta and Anna and that kind of stuff from the sports Baptiste. I find that way more compelling than the lady that throws giant orbs out and runs around. And yeah, it's practical. It makes sense, but it's not as compelling as a watch. I like watching even like guys like Crimzo. All of a sudden they just get hot on Zenyatta and they just start dinking heads, and it's fun. It's more fun. I think eventually with Moira, the thing is with Moira, eventually they go back to the higher skill ceiling heroes on some of these comps because they give more value. Yeah, Coalescence is great, and the rest of her kit's pretty good. You can get out of trouble with Fade and all that stuff, but end of the day, Nano's more valuable than Cole. So's Transcendence. The only one you could say is maybe Window, but Window works out really well too with the types of heroes you're playing. When you have Bap and Zenyatta backline and you have Sojourn, you can do a lot with a Window. So even that is better than Coalescence. Yeah, it's a good engage tool where you pop Coalescence, you go in and do the Lucio, and either they've been running Doomfist with it or Ball or whatever, and you go in. Yeah, I like that. That's good, but it's somewhat telegraphed. You could say that about Nano when you have a Genji on. There's going to be a blade. Anyway, that's my last thought on week 9. I'm not as big a fan of the Moira. But let's go into team takes for week 9. I didn't do all the teams, but here we go. We're going to do a couple teams from the East, a couple teams from the West, and we're going to have fun with this. I'll just do what I wrote down as I watched the matches. I've actually kind of I have a save file where I just write down my quick thoughts on each team that I watched. Like I said, I didn't do all of them, or I'm not going to, because I did a bunch, and limited time. We're going to talk about the teams we've been talking about. We're going to throw those in here. So they're on a different level, except for maybe the Gladiators. But even then, still top team in the league, not just East. I've talked a little bit about Seoul. Watching them play, they know exactly what to do all the time, and they have the players to do it. You have all-time greats in Smurf and Prophet. You have Vendime playing heroes that he's right now, when they're doing double flex board, he's playing a little Zend here and there, playing Brig, playing Lucio, playing whatever. He looks fantastic. You have Prophet doing Prophet things all the time. Fitz going crazy. He has heroes that are in this meta that are necessary, that are custom built for his style. Smurf has proved that he is the most versatile tank in the league, maybe next to Reiner, but you have a lot of talent, a lot of direction this is a prime example of what happens when you get someone who knows what they're doing in here compared to someone who shit the bed as a coach, and the strategies and whatnot and what have you got crazy. They were like the Justice were last year. They were like the New York. No direction, whatever. They were just like all over the place. Yeah, they won some regular season games, but in the big games and when it counted, they were doing weird shit and stupid shit. And now Chengun is gone. They're top of the league. Philly confuses me. That's all I wrote. They're by far one of the most hard teams to figure out. Other than they have a lot of talent on paper. It shows up 90% of the time, but I wouldn't say 90. A good 60% of the time, the talent's there. They just aren't cohesive at times. They feel like Atlanta does. They should be winning these games more than they do. They shouldn't be getting 3-0'd by teams. They shouldn't be losing weird matches to random teams like the Valiant. Confusing. Hangzhou, I trusted them and I got burned. You fool! Changun. Again. So yeah, team with all the talent, they look good from one week and then they're baffling the next. It's the Changun-ness of this team. If that's a word. He was at Seoul. We know what Seoul's deal was, and I'm in my mind writing it off. It's like, Hangzhou's good. Hangzhou's good. Much like I did with Seoul. And then I'm going to get angry at some point. I'm going to have a serious mauled with this team. I know I am. When they lose to a team that they should beat in a big match, whether it be to get into Midseason Madness or in the playoffs or in the tournament, there's going to be some scenario where I'm just going to lose it. I know it's going to happen. But I got burned by the Spark. I'm not saying they're bad. I just thought they were better than they're actually performing right now. Justice will not be a team until their leadership changes. Costa has said something about it on the desk too. They're just no direction, all the talent in the world, but all these other teams have a lot of talent too, like Uber said. But no direction, no chance. Mayhem's aggression will be their demise. Yeah, the Mayhem are overly aggressive at the start of fights and when they don't have to be. They, especially Majed at points, even when he's on Zenyatta, he's frontlining and getting just picked. When there's a Sojourn involved, your life's going to be hell anyway. Why exacerbate the problem? Yeah, I understand you're trying to make plays. That is perfectly okay, but you got to know when to make these aggressive plays and when not to. Sometimes someone does the same thing. They're just overly aggressive, and sometimes without reason, without cause. And some of the other things that I notice about their aggression, the right guys aren't being aggressive sometimes. Now, they had a fantastic performance from Eggsy at the end of that Boston match. In the last 3 maps that they won, he finally clicked on Sojourn, and you could see it. And without him involved in that, because there were multiple times where he got two or three picks after Majed and someone did something dumb to pull them back into the fight. But their aggression is going to kill them. London Spitfire can play with any team in the league, competitively. They look fantastic against Paris. They beat the Justice 3-2. We've talked enough about the Justice. We know how I feel about them. But I think they can hang with a lot of these teams in the league. I think they could even beat a team like Houston, Atlanta. They're going to be in these conversations. They've beaten the Mayhem. They can give the Gladiators a big run for their money. I'm sorry, Atlanta they beat, not Dallas. They might have played Dallas at the beginning of the year. I forgot. They beat Atlanta, but still, they can hang with some of these teams. And you could say what you want about Atlanta's record, but they're still a top-level team in this league. And the Spitfire have showed that they could beat them. And other teams. They're beating the mid-grade, or the mid-table teams, the Torontos, the Mayhems, the Justices. They're beating them with ease as far as Toronto and the Justice go. The Mayhem, they went 3-2 on, but still, at points in that match, they looked unstoppable. They do what they need to do, and they do it well. And they're going to be in this conversation. They have Dallas this week coming up, and we'll see what happens. I mean, they could very well beat the Fuel the way the Fuel are playing right now. I mean, we'll talk more about these things in my preview episode for Week 10, but they're a fantastic team. Last team take is Dallas is still searching. They're still playing around with different components of these compositions they want to run, what they're the best on. And, it's okay. I don't think that they're bad. They're struggling, yes. But they're stringing wins together, and that's all they need to do. They just need to get into the tournament with the talent level on this team, and they'll be fine. I do think they've dropped down a little bit. I didn't lose as much faith in them as some other people have. I did say they were kind of one trick in that Zarya comp, but they've come around since the week 1 of the tournament cycle, and they're looking better every week. The New York Excelsior played better than they have all year long. And here we are. Dallas is solidly planted in the Midseason Madness tournament, and I would assume that they're going to do more searching against the Spitfire. just trying to nail comps down and stuff like that. Yeah, you want to be in a good spot. Right now, they're a couple maps up and a couple of points up on London because of their placement and results in the kickoff clash. There's still work to be done for this team. They're still in a good spot, though. I would worry a little bit, but I wouldn't worry too much if I was a Dallas fan. Okay, so that's team takes. Let's talk. We're going to talk about one match here really quick. I just wanted to talk about this match because it was one of the better matches as far as viewing experience goes. I mean, was the gameplay the best? No, not really. But we're going to talk Outlaws in Atlanta. I mean, this game was back and forth all the way through. And they're two teams that I feel are on the same level right now. Maybe Atlanta, in theory, is a better team just from tournament results and whatnot and what have you. They're like polar opposites as far as the regular season goes. Atlanta struggles and does well in the tournament. Houston usually cleans up in the regular season games and then loses in the tournament. So, I mean, what more can you ask for? And then we have a fantastic match that happened this week between the two of them. So it started out looking like Atlanta was going to be the better team by far. They take Lijiang pretty handily. Kai and Venom and Hawk were just like destroying people, and their support line looked really good in this too. Houston had some counters and some plays. Merritt looked pretty good at times. Lastro on the Zenyatta, when he was playing Zenyatta, it looks good on that. I just like that look for them. It worked out okay, but there was a couple of points in that where maybe you could say they should have taken a point on here, but I still think Atlanta was in control of the whole map. Then we moved to Kings Row, where the Outlaws do kind of what Atlanta did to them in the first map, but in a different manner on a different map. They use this strategy, running Pelican on May, and then Lastro on Lucio, boosting him around, kind of like what you would do with a Reinhardt, but it was more murder-centric with May. And it worked out great because he had May in the back lines doing all kinds of damage and causing absolute chaos. There were times where Atlanta did not know where they were coming from, and it worked really, really well. He was disrupting Nero, I should say. But actually kind of both. They were kind of doing like a double sniperish. There were times when they were just harassing Nero, and Kai didn't really have any sight lines because he had May walls going up, and with the Lucio boosting the May, and then the May is free to go after Kai or the backline. It looked good, and they confused the hell out of Atlanta on that map, and I admired that gameplay. I thought it was great. 66 was pretty close. We saw a lot of good plays and just crazy shots and stuff from Merritt and from Kai doing stuff, and Venom looked pretty good on that map, and there was a lot of just big moments in these matches, or in this match, from both Sojourn players, who are the top two in the league. Yeah, they ran different heroes from time to time, but watching Kai and Merritt go at it on Sojourn was fantastic. And they're just deadly. This map was close, but Atlanta seemed in control. Like I said, it was pretty close. But Atlanta seemed in control most of the way through their attack, especially. They hunkered down after the second point cap on Houston's attack. And you could see Atlanta getting a little more momentum going, but it only lasted for a little while until they got to push, where Houston took it all the way in. After, you could say Atlanta had a decent push. It wasn't like the best, but this was one of those Houston dominating, and guys, they're big playmakers making big plays on this, and they take it all the way in, which was fantastic. And at the end, you could see Atlanta almost doing there's no way we're going to win this. It was almost like they didn't throw, but it was kind of, well, let's see if we can make a fight out of it. Maybe we can do something, but if they take it all the way in, it's no big deal, because they had such a lead that it's insurmountable with the amount of time on the clock. So it's not the biggest thing. But Houston looked really, really good on that push map. And on push maps in general, they look pretty good to me, at least from what I've seen or have paid attention to. I haven't watched all their matches, but they look good, especially when they have guys like Merritt and Pelican doing their thing. Then we get to the Ilios. This one was kind of back and forth, especially the first map on Ruins. We had a little back and forth, but Houston ends up taking that one. And then on the back of it, pretty much it seemed like Hawk doing Hawk things on Doom, and we had some Kai stuff going on in this. Or I'm sorry, not Kai. Nero playing a bunch of different heroes doing the Echo. He's really good at Echo, and I don't blame them for doing what they did on running Nero Venom in that last map. Some people I saw kind of complaining about that, but a little bit I was doing do you want to take Kai out? He's playing the most overtuned hero at a high level. Probably him and Mara are the two best in the league, but you have more versatility with what you could do with Nero, in that if you need to run Hanzo, you can run Hanzo, or Kai can run those things too, but you can run Echo, you can run different stuff, Genji, if you want. They barely squeak out Lighthouse, and you could almost call it a C9 by Houston, but not really. They just couldn't get back to the point because of boops and just the way that last fight went on there. And then the ending of Well was one of the most insane endings of anything I ever saw. If you guys haven't watched it, go back and watch the end of this match. They go back and forth. Houston takes the point, and they get to 90, I think, somewhere around 88-90. Then there's a fight that ensues. Both teams are at 99-99, and it goes into overtime, and it looks like Atlanta's cleaning up. In fact, Jaws is announcing it as Atlanta is winning this match, which, by all rights, they should have won that match. But they boosted the Lucio, and then for some reason, Hawk went in the well. After, I don't know if he got booped or what. It didn't really look like it. Venom, I believe, got booped into the well, too. So they went down, they come back. It looks like they're doing this cleanup thing. While Lucio's bouncing around on a nano boost, everybody has time to get back for Houston. They're still picking guys off Atlanta. You're going, okay, whatever. Pelican comes in and duplicates the Doom Fist. And then all I saw was, towards the end of it, you see a disruptor shot, and there's two guys left, I think, for Houston. 2 or 3, maybe. Hawk goes for because he gets caught in the disruptor shot. He immediately hits Q, goes for the meteor strike, and then as he's coming down, everybody gets off the point for Atlanta, and they lose. By no way in any stretch of any imagination that I think they were going to lose that. I thought they were cleaning up, but there was a moment where I'm going, I don't know if this is as much of a cleanup as Jaws thinks it is. They got a boosted Lucio, and then you see people trickling in. It was a fantastic ending, though. But Houston did win the match. They did what they had to do to win, and they sustained that fight way longer than it should have been, and Atlanta didn't jump onto it fast enough, and they got into a scenario where they let the fight linger, and unfortunately for them, lost the map on a C9. And a pretty bad one at that. Okay, so that's my match recap for the week. I thought it was a fun match to watch. This week had a lot of fun matches in general. We're going to do a quick look at the standings before we close this out, and we're going to talk more about those and the scenarios for the tournament at the beginning of next week's episode, because we're in the last week before the tournament starts, and we got to get everything settled and whatnot and what have you, figure out the seedings and all that. But here are the standings in the West and now the East. West teams are all set. All the teams are in. We don't have the seeding set yet, obviously. We have 1 week left. So San Francisco is going to be your number 1 seed. Yeah, they have the same amount of points as the Gladiators, but they're still going to be able to maintain what they have, and regardless, they have a higher map differential and all that. They have the same amount of points, but here we are. San Francisco's 90% going to be the number 1 seed in the West. Here's all the rest of the teams seeding yet to be determined. Tournament's going to have basically what we had last time. San Francisco, Gladiators, Dallas, London and the Justice switch places. But, so there is a new team. And then we got Houston, Atlanta, Mayhem, and the Defiant. On to the East. 1 seed's left to determine in the East. We have Philadelphia and Chengdu going at it for that one. They're not playing each other, but I think the scenario for Chengdu to get in is, I think they have to win both. Philadelphia might have to lose both. Both are viable, feasible, the way things go in the East. It could happen, because Philly has the extra points from being in the finals in the tournament, so they have 2 extra points over Chengdu, who has 1 more win than they do, but they're still on the outside looking in. So Chengdu has to at minimum tie them, as far as I can tell. But those are the standings. So we're going to dive into this way deeper coming up in the Week 10 preview. But that's going to do it for this episode, guys. A little longer than normal, but that's okay. We had a lot to talk about. A lot of things went on this week. There are better matches than there have been in the last couple of weeks. So we talked a little bit more. So that's going to do it. Thank you very much for all of your support. It's been greatly, greatly appreciated. Whether you've been here for 1 day or 5 years, thank you very much. If you're new, you made it all the way to the end of the video, thanks a lot. Please hit a like, hit a subscribe. That helps me out a lot in the algorithms and all that. It would be greatly appreciated. This is Misfit. I'm out. Everybody stay safe, have a good rest of your day, and I will talk to you on the next one.